What if human history is only the surface of something far more ancient? A modern-looking metal tool sealed inside stone, believed to be over 100 million years old. A small iron object shaped almost like a perfect cube, rumored to be either extraterrestrial or the remains of a lost prehistoric civilization. And a mysterious machine nearly 2,000 years old, recovered from an ancient shipwreck near Greece. So sophisticated, it seemed impossible for its time. If even one of these artifacts is real, then everything we believe about the past may be completely wrong. The London Hammer, the hammer that shook the imagination. In 1938, near a small town called London in the state of Texas, a couple was walking near a riverbank when they noticed a strange rock. At first glance, it did not seem particularly remarkable, just a chunk of sandstone with a piece of wood sticking out from it. They brought it home as a curiosity and left it sitting on a shelf for years without giving it much thought. The rock remained untouched for nearly a decade. Then, in 1947, their son became curious about the wooden piece protruding from the stone and decided to break the rock open to see what was inside. That moment revealed something astonishing: an iron hammer with a wooden handle embedded tightly inside the hardened stone. The problem was this: if the hammer had truly been trapped inside the rock since ancient times, then it could have existed long before humans were supposedly capable of ironworking. An iron tool appearing at the wrong point in history would raise a massive question. Who made it? To those who believe in alternative history, the London Hammer could be the trace of a forgotten civilization. But to scientists and skeptics, the story is far from convincing. The hammer was not discovered during a professional excavation. There are no clear geological records from the site, and no independent evidence was documented at the moment of discovery. It may simply have been a 19th century tool belonging to a miner or farmer, later trapped in a rock crevice and gradually encased by minerals over time. Yet because there has never been a definitive explanation, the London Hammer remains one of the most controversial artifacts ever discussed. Not necessarily because it proves anything, but because it forces people to ask, is the past really as simple as we think it is? Why is this hammer so controversial? What makes the London Hammer unusual is not the hammer itself. If you placed it alone on a table, it would look completely ordinary. A wooden handle, an iron head, nothing visually extraordinary about it. What changes everything is the context in which it was found. An ordinary object, when discovered in the wrong place, can suddenly become a mystery. And that is exactly what happened with the London Hammer. People stopped asking, "What is this?" and began asking, "Why was it there?" If the hammer were simply a modern tool that fell into a crack in the rock, the story would end very quickly. But if it had truly been trapped inside the stone for an extremely long time, then it would become a major problem for the accepted timeline of history. Iron tools are not supposed to exist during periods when humans were supposedly incapable of metallurgy. And this is where the controversy truly begins. Some people believe the London Hammer could be evidence of a forgotten civilization erased from mainstream history. According to them, scientists may be too quick to dismiss an artifact that has never been fully explained. Their strongest argument centers on the rock surrounding the hammer. But skeptics argue that mineral encasement can form much faster than people assume. If it were merely a modern tool, then why did mineral deposits encase it in a way that makes it appear as though it had been embedded there for a very long time? But skeptics strongly disagree. Geologists and archaeologists point out that the biggest issue is that the hammer was never discovered during a controlled scientific excavation. There are no proper geological records, no verified field documentation, and no independent evidence confirming its true age. To them, the most reasonable explanation is much simpler. It was likely just a 19th century hammer gradually encased by mineral buildup over time. And that is what makes this story so fascinating. The exact same object can produce two completely different interpretations. One side sees evidence of hidden history. The other sees proof of how easily humans are drawn toward mystery and speculation. So what do you think? If you had to choose right now, which argument feels more convincing to you? Why some people believe the hammer is not ordinary. For people who believe the London Hammer is more than an ordinary tool, several details continue to raise questions. The biggest issue is the rock surrounding the hammer. Supporters argue that if the object truly became encased as the stone formed, then the hammer could be far older than accepted human history allows. They also point to the wooden handle, which appears heavily mineralized, suggesting it may have remained buried for a very long time. But the most controversial claim involves the metal itself. Some supporters believe the iron head appeared unusually pure compared to typical 19th century tools, leading them to question whether its origin has been fully explained. From there, the argument becomes much larger than a single hammer. Because if the artifact were genuinely ancient, it would suggest that advanced metalworking may have existed far earlier than mainstream history currently accepts. Why many scientists reject the London hammer. But while supporters see the London hammer as a buried secret from the distant past, skeptics believe the entire mystery may have originated from a very simple misunderstanding. According to geologists, an object found inside rock does not automatically mean the object is as old as the rock itself. In nature, mineral-rich water can seep through cracks, surround an object, and gradually harden into a stone-like shell. In some environments, this process can happen much faster than most people realize. In other words, the hammer could simply have fallen into a crevice, later becoming covered by mud, minerals, and sediment over time until it appeared ancient. Skeptics also emphasize another major issue. The London hammer was never recovered through a formal archaeological excavation. There are no complete geological records, no professional archaeological documentation from the original site, and no strong chain of scientific evidence capable of reliably determining the hammer's true age. In archaeology, once the original context of an artifact is lost, much of its evidential value disappears with it. Some researchers have also pointed out that the hammer closely resembles tools used by miners and farmers in 19th century America. And for skeptics, the simplest explanation is usually the most likely one. This is not evidence of a lost civilization. It is simply an old hammer that time and mineral deposits accidentally transformed into something mysterious. But perhaps the most interesting part is this. Even today, neither side has been able to completely convince the other. And it is precisely that gap between evidence and why many scientists reject the London hammer. But while supporters see the London hammer as a buried secret from the distant, the Salzburg Cube, a mystery hidden in Austrian coal mines. But the London hammer is not the only story that has caused people to question so-called out-of-place artifacts. In 1885, near the city of Salzburg in Austria, a worker reportedly discovered a strange object inside a block of coal. When the coal was split open, a small metallic object appeared within it, roughly cube-shaped, with rounded edges and a groove running around its middle. What shocked people most was where it was found. Coal typically forms over millions of years. So if this metal object had truly been embedded inside the coal since its formation, then the question becomes even more unbelievable than the London hammer. Who could have created a metal object during an age when humans supposedly did not even exist? To believers in alternative history, the Salzburg Cube appears to be another clue suggesting the past may be far more complex than we realize. A metallic object with an apparently artificial shape discovered in extremely ancient geological surroundings. The story is difficult to ignore, but from a more cautious perspective, the mystery may simply come from the environment of coal mining itself. In coal mines, layers of earth and rock are constantly disturbed, moved, and mixed together. A cast iron machine component from the 19th century could easily have fallen into the coal and later been mistaken for something millions of years old. So is the Salzburg Cube evidence of a civilization outside recorded history? Or merely a misplaced machine part woven into a much larger story? Like the London hammer, its appeal lies in the gap between what we see and what we can actually prove. Antikythera, when ancient technology was lost. But not every strange artifact ends with an ordinary explanation. Some discoveries do not prove the existence of a super ancient civilization, yet they are still powerful enough to force us to rethink the past. The Antikythera Mechanism is one of those cases. The story began in 1901 near the Greek island of Antikythera. A group of sponge divers discovered the wreck of an ancient ship resting on the seafloor. Among statues, coins, and fragments of pottery, they found a corroded lump of green bronze that looked like nothing more than a ruined piece of metal. But when scientists studied it more closely, the interior revealed something astonishing. More than 30 bronze gears assembled together with extraordinary precision, resembling a miniature mechanical machine. What was it? Not a weapon, not jewelry, and not an ordinary religious object. Research suggests it may have been a form of ancient mechanical computer used to predict the movements of the sun, the moon, the planets, and even eclipses. What makes the Antikythera Mechanism different is that it was not discovered under vague circumstances like the London Hammer or the Salzburg Cube. It was recovered from a clearly dated ancient shipwreck and later analyzed using modern technologies such as X-rays and 3D modeling. So why did it still shock the world? Because a device this sophisticated should not have appeared so early in history. In popular imagination, ancient people are often viewed as primitive and simple, builders of stone monuments, bronze tools, and sky watchers using only the naked eye. But Antikythera revealed something very different. Ancient people did not merely observe astronomy. They knew how to transform that knowledge into an incredibly complex calculating machine. And this is the crucial distinction. Antikythera does not suggest that a civilization existed 300,000 years ago. Instead, it points to something more realistic, yet still astonishing. Technologies once existed were later lost, and thousands of years passed before we realized how advanced ancient knowledge had truly become. The Silurian Hypothesis. What if someone was here before us? At this point, the story is no longer just about a hammer trapped in stone or a metal object inside coal. The question becomes much larger. If another civilization once existed on Earth before humanity, would we still be able to recognize its traces? That is the idea behind the Silurian Hypothesis. The hypothesis does not claim such a civilization actually existed. Instead, it asks a different question. After millions of years, what would remain of an industrial society? Cities could collapse. Metal could oxidize. Concrete, machines, and structures could all be destroyed by time. In that case, what survives might not be hammers, nails, or gears, but tiny traces hidden in sedimentary rock. Abnormal carbon levels, synthetic chemicals, changes in isotope ratios, or geological signals suggesting large-scale industrial activity. And this is where the hypothesis becomes truly interesting. The Silurian Hypothesis does not demand that we believe in a lost civilization. It simply asks whether we are searching for the correct kind of evidence. Because if we only search for tools, statues, or ruined cities, we may be looking for the wrong traces altogether. A civilization old enough may not leave intact artifacts behind, only faint chemical scars embedded in the body of the Earth itself. And perhaps the most unsettling possibility is not that we have failed to find those traces. Perhaps it is that we may already have seen them without realizing what we were looking at. What do out-of-place artifacts really say about us? After everything, perhaps the most important question is not whether the London Hammer truly proves the existence of an ancient civilization. Perhaps the real question is, why are we so fascinated by stories like these? A hammer inside stone, a metal object buried in coal, an ancient machine resting beneath the sea. Each artifact feels like a small crack in the familiar wall of history. And through that crack, we do not only glimpse the past, we also glimpse our own imagination. In my opinion, these artifacts are not enough to prove the existence of a forgotten super ancient civilization. But they also should not be dismissed with a simple laugh. Because sometimes, the value of a mystery is not that it provides answers, but that it forces us to ask better questions. Perhaps the London Hammer really is just a 19th century tool coated in minerals. Perhaps the Salzburg Cube is nothing more than a machine component from a coal mine. But Antikythera reminds us that ancient people once possessed knowledge far beyond popular assumptions. And the Silurian Hypothesis pushes us to ask an even deeper question. If traces of a far older past truly exist, would we even be capable of recognizing them? So perhaps the most reasonable position is neither to believe everything nor to reject everything. Instead, it is to maintain a disciplined curiosity, skeptical enough not to be swept away by unsupported stories, yet humble enough to admit that Earth's history is far longer and more complicated than human understanding. 4.5 billion years is an enormous span of time. Human civilization has existed for only a brief flash within it. Out-of-place artifacts may not be final proof of anything, but they are reminders that the past is never as simple as a line written in a textbook. So what do you think? Are these artifacts merely misunderstandings, mistakes, and coincidences? Or is there still a missing piece hidden somewhere among them? Something we do not yet have enough evidence to fully understand. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories that exist at the intersection of history, science, and mystery, don't forget to follow the channel for more explorations into the unknown.